Broadway fans, stands, and everyone else who is in between. My name is Andres, but you know that already because it's my channel name. Anyways, today's video we are talking about Tony Awards of the past. It's a new series I'm starting since I'm stuck at home because of, you know what, don't want to get demonetized. Anyways, we're going to get into the 2017 Tony Awards. That means, the 2018, sorry. SpongeBob, Donna Summer, Escape to Margaritaville, Band's Visit. Not a lot of shows came out this season, but anyways, we're going to now turn to the audio portion of the video, so please like, subscribe, comment, and enjoy the video. Peace! Up first, we got the Band's Visit. Now, there was a little bit of controversy with the Band's Visit and its wins. And this was pretty much with the Broadway stands. So the Broadway stands is, it's a community, and it can be really annoying and really great other times. However, at this year's Tony Awards, SpongeBob and Mean Girls were the stand's favorite musicals. And when SpongeBob only got one win and Mean Girls got 0, the stand community was understandably very upset. And they were upset that the Band's Visit won all of the Tony Awards, including Best Leading Actor, which many thought should have gone to Ethan Slater and Tony Shalhoub, who just sat on a bench and did nothing for 2 hours. And that's just my personal opinion. Anyways, Band's Visit won Best Musical. It was the hit show of the season, and it originally premiered off-Broadway at the Atlantic Theater Company on November 11th, 2016, and closed on January 8th, 2017. The show had a lot of buzz, got great critical reception, and eventually began previews on October 7th at the Ethel Barrymore Theater, and opened on November 9th, and closed on April 7th, 2019, after 589 performances. And the US tour launched in June of this year. So, anyways, Band's Visit was no Hamilton. It was no Spring Awakening. It was not a big revolutionary show. But critics really admired it for being a very different Broadway show, having a different sound, and not being this huge extravaganza Beetlejuice type show. It was more of a quiet show, and its nuances were in the subtlety of the performances, which is why I think Tony Shalhoub won instead of Ethan Slater. Had Band's Visit not been in this season, I truly believe SpongeBob would have come home with a lot of awards. Now, SpongeBob is an interesting one. It was supposed to be this huge flop of a musical, but it ended up being a fan favorite. The show premiered in June of 2016 at the Chicago Theater. Anyways, the show opened on June 7th, 2016 at the Oriental Theater in Chicago, and eventually closed after a couple weeks run. Now, the show was supposed to come in that next season, but due to how many theaters were not available, the show just had a cast album that was recorded, and eventually it premiered on Broadway on December 4th, 2017 at the largest theater in Broadway history, the Palace Theater. Or at least that's what it looked like when I went and saw it. Now, people were very critical of SpongeBob as a musical. It sounded stupid, and it sounded clearly like a college cash grab. And it had songs by various composers, including Sarah Bareilles, David Bowie, Flaming Lips, T.I., Jonathan Coulton, list goes on and on. Anyways, the show received universal acclaim from critics and was an unexpected success on Broadway, and received the most Tony nominations that season, tying with Mean Girls with 12 Tony nominations. Ben Brantley called it a ginormous giggle of a show and praised Slate's performance as the titular character. Now, while the show won big at the Outer Critics Circle Awards, the Drama League Awards, and the Drum Desk Awards, it only managed to bring home 1 Tony for Best Scenic Design. Now, many people were very critical of this and thought that Tina Landau and Ethan Slater should have won. In my personal opinion, I thought Band's Visit was a more nuanced show, but I definitely do think SpongeBob was robbed of at least an leading actor or director. And then there was even more drama with this show. So basically what happened was SpongeBob, right after the Tony Awards, and that a couple weeks later, announced that they were going to be closing on September 16th, 2018, after 327 regular performances without recouping its $18 million cost, though many say that it was more closer to $30 million. And many said that, and the reason why it closed was because of the renovations of the Palace Theater, though the New York Times reported that the financial performance had been very disappointing. Now, here's the thing. SpongeBob did close because of renovations due to the Palace Theater. However, even if the show hadn't run short because of that, financially the show was not doing well. It was not making $1 million weekly, it was really underperforming, and it clearly was not getting that target audience. SpongeBob clearly failed because people didn't think SpongeBob would be a good musical, and I can totally understand why. And the small legion of fans that SpongeBob the musical had were not enough to keep it going. But a US tour happened, and a Nickelodeon live performance happened this past Christmas, which was amazing. Go watch it on Amazon Prime or iTunes. And honestly, the legacy that SpongeBob the Musical had was even greater than its Broadway run. And then we get into the biggest flop so far, Escape to Margaritaville. Now, following trial performances in New Orleans, Houston, and Chicago, the show premiered on Broadway in February 2018 at the Marriott Marquis Theater. And it closed in May of that year. July of that year after 124 performances. Now, throughout this entire Broadway process, Margaritaville was doing poor at the box office. Critics hated the show and demised the Jukebox musical. Now, what's interesting is that in this season and in seasons before this, Jukebox musicals had fallen out of fashion, though recently, they seem to have had a big return. There isn't much to say. It received no Tony Awards, was hated by critics, and audiences were mad to it, but it managed to go on a national tour and is considered one of the biggest flops in Broadway history. Moving on, we have Frozen. Now, obviously, Frozen was in the works to go to Broadway for a long time, beginning in January of 2014. Now, in February of 2015, Thomas Schumacher, the head of Disney Theatrical, confirmed that the songwriters were working on the show and that Jennifer Lee would be writing the book, but that no other staffing or dates had been announced. Now, Frozen had a bit of an interesting developmental process. Alex Timbers, known for directing the hit musicals Moulin Rouge, Beetlejuice, Peter and the Starcatcher, was actually going to be the director, and Betsy Wolfe was going to play Anna, along with the guy who played Hercules Mulligan, set to play Kristoff, and had a variety of different cast members. However, the entire creative team was scrapped, and they brought in Michael Grandage, most of them for doing Shakespeare, and by the time they made it to Broadway, they had gone through 3 choreographers, 2 set designers, 2 Elsas, and 2 directors. Now, despite all of this coming and going, the show was still very successful in Denver, and when it opened on Broadway at the St. James Theater, they did really well and were regularly making $2 million. Now, the Denver trial was successful, but critics were still mixed to it, and about 70% of the show was rewritten, but this was not enough to convince critics, who said it was bland, boring, and dull, and received only 3 Tony nominations, and obviously it wasn't going to win any. Then we get to Mean Girls. Now, Mean Girls had been in development for quite some time, but made its way to the National Theater in October of 2017, and began Broadway previews at the August Wilson Theater on March 12th, 2018. Now, the show had many Tony nominations, and was doing great at the box office, and still is, though with this Broadway shutdown, it might close, but who knows. The point is Mean Girls was doing really well. However, critics were very mixed to the show, and said that it wasn't anything special, and it definitely did not receive any rave reviews, but they weren't downright negative, like A Be More Chill or Escape to Margaritaville. Now, it has managed to go on tour, recouped its investment, and they're making a movie about a musical based on a movie. Kinda weird. And then we have Summer Donna, the Summer Donna musical. Now, this show was in a downright flop, and it premiered on Broadway at the Lunt-Fontanne Theater on March 28th, 2018, and closed on December 30th after only 289 performances. It didn't receive any Tony nominations, but they did perform on the Tonys, and the show did really well in the beginning, but ultimately failed. Now, as this season goes, I think this was a very solid mix of shows. Now, only 2 shows remain, and that being Frozen and Mean Girls, and it's understandable. SpongeBob closed in September, Summer closed in December, Prince of Barter was a limited engagement, Margaritaville was a downright flop, and Band's Visit, despite winning Best Musical, only ran for less than a year. And I think the reason why Band's Visit didn't run as long as it could have is simply because it's not that quote-unquote commercial Broadway show. It doesn't have a lot of appeal to the younger demographic, and really only appeals to a certain demo that only appreciates very nuanced pieces of theater. But still, I think Broadway critics and audiences really appreciate it, even though it didn't make that much of a stamp on the community or the larger pop culture as something like Evan Hansen or Hamilton would. Guys, thank you for my breakdown and review of this Tony Awards season. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.